By the time the Caldwell board took my husband's office key, I had already lost my place in his family. The brass key struck the conference table with a thin click. Cold air moved across the back of my neck. Burned coffee and lemon furniture polish hung in the room. Matthew sat 3 chairs away, staring at the key as if it belonged to a stranger. His mother stood at the far end of the table. Evelyn Caldwell had built her life around never appearing shaken. That morning, her lipstick had bled into the lines above her mouth, and her hand kept tightening around her purse. "You did this," Evelyn said. I looked at the woman who had spent 12 years using a dead son, a wounded soldier, and my silence to build her name. "No," I said. "You signed it." Outside the glass wall, employees pretended not to watch. Inside, the board attorney slid a preservation notice toward Evelyn and asked for her phone. Matthew finally looked at me. His eyes held the question he had refused to ask when there was still time. "How did we get here?" 6 days earlier, I entered the Caldwell Hotel ballroom with my hand resting on my daughter's elbow. Lena was 17, 2 weeks from 18, and old enough to recognize when a room had been arranged to make someone feel small. "They left you off the program again," Lena whispered. The booklet listed Matthew as Chief Operating Officer, Evelyn as Chairman, and Eric Caldwell as the fallen hero whose sacrifice had inspired Caldwell Infrastructure. My name appeared nowhere. "That saves me from giving a speech," I said. Crystal chandeliers warmed the white tablecloths. A string quartet played beside the stage. The room smelled of prime rib, expensive perfume, and waxy lilies surrounding Eric's photograph. I touched the scar beneath my left shoulder through my dress. At 46, I had spent half my life training myself not to rub old injuries in public. I had retired from the Army as a captain and moved into industrial safety, where people listened when I said a shortcut could kill someone. The Caldwells preferred the version of me who stood quietly beside Matthew. He found us near the entrance. "You made it," Matthew said. His kiss landed beside my cheek. "I said I would." Matthew adjusted his cuff. "Mom is nervous. The renewal team is here, and the bank sent representatives. Why would the bank attend an anniversary gala?" His eyes shifted toward Lena. "Tonight is not the time." Lena tightened her fingers around the program. "What happens after your birthday?" I asked her. Matthew answered first. "Nothing. We will discuss it at home." "Grandma said I'm signing something the next morning," Lena said. Matthew's jaw flexed. "Your grandmother has managed Eric's legacy since before you could read." "That was not my question," Lena replied. A waiter passed with champagne. Glasses chimed against the tray. Matthew lowered his voice. "Please do not start this here." There was always a reason the truth needed to wait. "I did not start anything," I said. Lena asked what she is expected to sign. Matthew touched my arm. The pressure was gentle enough to look affectionate and firm enough to warn me. I removed his hand. Before he could speak, the quartet stopped. Evelyn stood at the microphone wearing black silk and Eric's service pin. Applause followed as she thanked contractors, officials, veterans groups, and employees who had helped preserve her son's legacy. Then her gaze found me. "Some sacrifices are lived quietly," Evelyn said. "Others are advertised by people who need attention." A few guests shifted. Matthew stared at the floor. "People often ask whether heroism is earned or assigned," Evelyn continued. "These days, the Army seems eager to call certain people heroes for reasons that have little to do with courage." The muscles along my spine tightened. Lena whispered, "Mom." I covered her hand with mine. Evelyn pointed at me. "People like her get called heroes?" The microphone carried her voice to every corner. No one laughed. "The Army only favors her because she's black." The room became so quiet I heard ice settle in a glass 3 tables away. Heat climbed my throat. My scar pulled tight beneath my dress. 12 years of swallowed explanations pressed behind my teeth. I could have told them about smoke turning noon black. I could have told them how Nathan Cole's blood made the gravel slick beneath my knees. I could have told them Eric had ignored a stop order because he believed someone ahead was calling for help. Instead, I set down my water. Slowly. Evelyn wanted anger. She wanted a scene she could use later. I gave her nothing. Then I heard it. Tap. Drag. Tap. A broad-shouldered man moved between the tables on forearm crutches. His right trouser leg ended below the knee. Sweat shone along his temple, but his eyes never left mine. For one breath, diesel smoke burned my nose again. Gravel cut through my gloves. A man screamed that he could not feel his foot. "Nathan," I said. Nathan Cole stopped before me and dropped one crutch. Metal struck the floor. Then he wrapped both arms around me. Without her, Nathan said, loud enough for the room to hear, I'd be dead. The moment was too raw for applause. Lena covered her mouth. Matthew lost all color. Evelyn stared at Nathan as if a grave had opened in her ballroom. Nathan released me and placed a blackened metal tag in my palm. My maiden name remained visible beneath the burns. Danielle Brooks. You kept it, I said. It was tangled in the strap you used on my leg, Nathan replied. The medics gave it to me after surgery. Evelyn stepped down from the stage. That proves nothing, she said. Nathan turned toward her. Staff Sergeant Cole suffered catastrophic trauma, Evelyn continued. Memory after such an event can be unreliable. My statement was taken before my second surgery, Nathan said. I signed it. Evelyn reached for the tag. Nathan caught her wrist before she touched me. Do not, he said. Matthew hurried forward. Nathan, let her go. Nathan released her immediately. I came because your office invited me to tell a lie, he said. I looked at Matthew. What lie? The screen behind the stage brightened. Eric's photograph appeared above the words, Courage has a legacy. The video showed a younger Nathan beside a vehicle. The image had been cropped so tightly that only another shoulder remained at the edge. My shoulder, my uniform, my hand on Nathan's back. A narrator said Eric Caldwell had given his life while saving a fellow soldier. Turn it off, Nathan said. Evelyn lifted her chin. That film has been shown for years. That does not make it true, Nathan replied. The screen went dark. Evelyn faced the guests. This is a private family misunderstanding. Danielle has always struggled with Eric receiving the recognition he deserved. Lena moved beside me. Grandma, she asked, why did you tell everyone Uncle Eric saved him? Because he did, Evelyn said. Nathan reached into his jacket and removed a yellowed military envelope. The flap remained sealed. My maiden name was written across the front in Eric's uneven handwriting. Danielle Brooks. Beneath it were 4 smaller words. Not Evelyn, not Matthew. Matthew saw them and stepped forward. Where did you get that? He asked. Eric gave it to me the morning before the convoy, Nathan said. Why did you never give it to me? I asked. Nathan lowered his eyes. After the blast, you asked me not to drag his parents through more pain. I thought you meant all of it. Then Matthew's office sent me a speech saying Eric saved me. He handed me the envelope. Something small and metal shifted inside. Evelyn moved faster than I had ever seen her move. She grabbed for it. I pulled it against my body. Her nails scraped my hand. Give me that, Evelyn said. I looked at the red lines rising on my skin. Until then, she had treated Nathan's return as an insult. Now she looked afraid. What is in this envelope? I asked. Matthew answered for her. Danielle, do not open it here. Lena stared at her father. You knew about it. Matthew said nothing. I slid one finger beneath the flap. Inside was a brass key and a storage receipt bearing the name of a law office I had not heard in years. Eric had left something for me 12 years ago. Nathan had carried it through surgeries, rehabilitation, and a life rebuilt around one missing leg. My husband had recognized it. My mother-in-law had tried to tear it from my hands. Evelyn was not afraid of being embarrassed. She was afraid of what Eric had saved. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Evelyn's nails had left 4 scratches across my hand. Chairs shifted around us, and the waxy smell of lilies turned my stomach. Behind us, the music faltered, then resumed again, with brittle determination. Matthew kept his voice low. Put it away, Danielle. I looked at him. Why? His jaw tightened. Because this is not the place. That is what you said about Lena's trust. Lena stepped closer. Nathan retrieved his crutch. Evelyn stood between us and the stage, trying to force the ballroom back into obedience. Evelyn faced the guests. My son's widow is upset, she said. I am not Eric's widow, I replied. Matthew reached for my elbow. I moved before his fingers touched me. Danielle, Matthew said, we can discuss the envelope at home. Nathan laughed without humor. Your office told me not to let her see it, Nathan said. Now you want to discuss it at home? Matthew's eyes moved to him. I never said that. I kept the email, Nathan replied. Evelyn stepped in. This evening is over. She signaled the coordinator. Music started again as staff moved toward the tables, pretending dessert could erase what had happened. Lena leaned close to my ear. Mom, do not give them that envelope. I won't. Evelyn heard me. That belongs to my son, she said. Eric wrote my name on it. You used Nathan's memory when it served you. I want to leave, Nathan said. I nodded. Matthew blocked our path. You are not taking family property out of this building. Lena stared at her father. Family property? She asked. Mom is your family. Matthew looked at our daughter. This is more complicated than you understand. You say that when you do not want to answer, Lena replied. We walked past him. Outside, humid Georgia air pressed against my skin. Tires hissed over wet pavement as Nathan lowered himself into my car and Lena climbed behind us. My hands shook at the ignition, not from fear, but from holding 12 years of anger behind my teeth. You should open it, Nathan said. Not here. Dad knew what it was, Lena said behind us. What did Uncle Eric leave? I do not know. The truthful answer frightened me. By morning, the scratches had turned purple. I met Nathan at a diner near the river. Bacon grease, burnt toast, and bitter coffee filled the air, while a ceiling fan clicked above us. Nathan placed a thick folder on the table. I started requesting records 5 months ago, he said. I stopped stirring my coffee. 5 months? The company contacted me about the anniversary film. A woman from public relations asked whether I would confirm that Eric saved my life. What did you tell her? I told her Eric never reached me. Nathan opened the folder to printed emails, hospital records, and a prepared speech. The first line read, Eric Caldwell carried me from the burning vehicle. They wrote this for you? They offered travel expenses and an honorarium if I read it. How much? $5,000. A company desperate enough to buy a wounded man's memory might also be desperate enough to use Lena's trust. Nathan slid another page toward me. The message came from Matthew's business account. Please honor the larger truth of Eric's sacrifice. No one is asking you to lie. My husband's name sat beneath it. He called afterward, Nathan said. He said, you had agreed not to reopen the investigation and that contacting you might trigger old trauma. The spoon slipped from my hand and struck the saucer. A coffee pot clinked while my marriage changed shape in front of me. I believed him until the invitation called me the soldier Eric rescued, Nathan said. Then I saw the company website. He turned his phone toward me. Eric smiled in dress uniform beneath the words, the courage behind our foundation. Farther down, Nathan's younger face appeared beside a paragraph describing Eric's final act. My name had been removed. They built a business story around it, Nathan said. I opened the yellowed envelope. The flap released with a dry, tearing sound. Inside lay a brass key, a narrow storage receipt, and a folded note. My name appeared again in Eric's handwriting. Danielle, if this reaches you, I did not make it home. The key opens box 12 at Mercer and Shaw. Do not let Mom move what is inside into the company. Matthew knows enough to help you, but he may not be strong enough to stand against her. I read the last sentence twice. I handed Nathan the note. Matthew knows enough, he said. Yes. The receipt came from a Savannah law office. The listed attorney, Harold Shaw, had retired 6 years earlier. Nathan returned the note and removed a sealed plastic sleeve. The dog tag was not the only thing I kept, he said. Inside was his original witness statement. It was dated 2 days after the explosion. I signed it before my second surgery, Nathan said. Before medication blurred anything or the Caldwells spoke to me. I read the first paragraph. Captain Danielle Brooks entered the hazard area after the secondary fire began. She removed me from the vehicle and applied a field tourniquet. Specialist Eric Caldwell did not make contact with my position following the blast. My throat closed. The report did not attack Eric. It simply placed each of us where we had been. I requested the rest months ago, Nathan said. A redacted safety summary should arrive soon. Why? Someone asked me to sell a dead man's lie. After the waitress left, I folded Eric's note into the envelope. We need to verify the storage box. Nathan nodded. Do you trust Matthew? Rainwater crawled down the window. No, I said. The quiet words still felt like breaking bone. At home, Lena sat on the kitchen counter clutching her phone. Cinnamon tea cooled untouched beside her. Dad is upstairs, she whispered. What happened? Grandma called me. I set my purse down. What did she want? She said I embarrassed the family. Then she said the trust papers are being moved up. How far? Tomorrow. She cannot make you sign. I took pictures last week, Lena said. She showed me a secured legacy investment agreement. Almost every liquid asset in the Eric Caldwell Trust would secure company debt. The proposed closing date was the day before Lena's birthday. Matthew's signature line was blank. Evelyn's was already signed. Lena swiped to the final page. A conversion agreement followed. If the company failed to repay, Lena's cash rights would become non-voting shares she could not sell for years. They told me it protected Uncle Eric's legacy, Lena said. It protects the company. Is that the same thing to them? Matthew appeared at the stairs, his gaze falling on Lena's phone. Give me that, he said. Lena slid off the counter and moved behind me. No, she replied. Matthew came down slowly. Those documents are confidential. She is the beneficiary, I replied. You do not understand the structure. Then explain why the trust is lending nearly all its liquid assets to a company facing a bank review. Matthew stopped. Surprise crossed his face. That was enough. You knew, I said. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. The loan is temporary. Why is the conversion agreement already prepared? Because lenders require contingencies. Lena is not a lender. She is your daughter. Hundreds of people depend on that company, Matthew said. So Lena must save them? I intend to preserve what Eric built. Lena spoke behind me. Uncle Eric did not build the company. Matthew looked at her. Do not repeat things you do not understand. She lifted her chin. Then let me read the trust. You will see it when the time is right. The time is tomorrow, I said. Matthew's shoulders dropped. The bank renewal is next week. If the trust provides temporary collateral, everything stabilizes. And if it does not? The company restructures. What happens to Lena's money? He did not answer. Rain struck the kitchen windows harder. I removed Eric's envelope from my purse and placed it on the counter. Matthew stared at the handwriting, his face changing exactly as it had in the ballroom. Where did you get that? He asked. Nathan. Matthew reached for it. I covered it with my hand. Eric said you knew enough to help me. Matthew went still. Lena looked from her father to me. What did Uncle Eric mean? Matthew's eyes stayed on the brass key visible inside the envelope. Nothing, he said, but his voice had weakened. I enlarged the signature page. A notation at the bottom identified the required approval. Both acting trustees must authorize transfer. Evelyn had signed. The second trustee was listed beneath her name. Matthew Caldwell. My husband had not merely known about the plan. The bank could not move Lena's money without him. Matthew's name sat beneath Evelyn's on the transfer authorization. For several seconds, nobody moved. Rain hammered the kitchen windows. The refrigerator hummed. Lena stood behind me, holding her phone to her chest. Matthew stared at Eric's envelope as though it had accused him. You are a co-trustee, I said. Matthew rubbed both hands over his face. It was the only practical way to manage the account. Why did you never tell me? The trust was Eric's business. Lena is our daughter. His mouth tightened. Mom handled the details. I signed forms when necessary. You signed a transfer that could lock nearly every liquid asset inside your company. It is not a transfer. It is secured financing, with Lena's future as collateral. Matthew looked toward the stairs, then lowered his voice. The company is facing a temporary liquidity problem. We have receivables coming in. The bridge loan keeps payroll stable until the renewal clears. And if the renewal fails? It will not. That was not my question. Lena stepped beside me. What happens to my trust if the company cannot repay? She asked. Matthew's expression softened, but he still did not answer. Dad, Lena said, what happens? The agreement converts the debt into shares. Shares I cannot vote and cannot sell. You would still own something valuable. Lena's fingers closed around her phone. You were going to trade my money for something I could not control. Matthew glanced at me as if I had taught her the words. She can read, I said. He pushed away from the counter. I am not discussing complex financial documents in the middle of the night. You plan to have her sign tomorrow, I replied. That meeting is postponed. By whom? By me. The answer came quickly. I opened my purse and removed the storage receipt. Then you will not object to me taking this key to Mercer and Shaw. Color drained from Matthew's face. That office closed years ago. The records were transferred. Danielle, you have no idea what is in that box. Do you? He looked at Eric's handwriting again. Lena whispered, Dad knew. Matthew turned toward her. I knew Eric stored papers. I did not know what Nathan had. Then why did you try to take the envelope? I asked. Because anything Eric left belongs with the family. I am family. His eyes met mine, and the truth appeared. Not the right kind. I gathered the envelope, the photographs, and Lena's phone. Where are you going? Matthew asked. To make sure nothing else disappears. He moved toward the doorway. I did not raise my voice. Do not block me. Perhaps he remembered hearing that tone before. The woman who had protected his family's grief had stopped protecting his comfort. Matthew stepped aside. Lena came with me. By sunrise, we were sitting in the office of Rachel Monroe, a trust attorney Nathan had contacted through a veterans legal network. Her conference room smelled of paper, peppermint tea, and old carpet. A brass clock ticked beside Georgia law books. Rachel read the financing agreement, then examined Eric's envelope through a clear sleeve. Did anyone other than you open this? Rachel asked. No, Nathan kept it sealed? Yes. Good. She placed the trust photographs in a straight line. Evelyn and Matthew are co-trustees. Both signatures are required above the stated threshold. The company would receive most liquid assets as a secured loan. What secures it? I asked. Rachel tapped the annex. Company equipment, future receivables, and a pledge of non-voting shares. The problem is that the collateral may already be tied to existing lenders. So Lena could stand behind the bank. Possibly. Lena sat very still. Rachel looked at her. Did anyone advise you to speak with an independent attorney before signing? My grandmother said the family lawyer had already reviewed everything. The family lawyer represents the company. Lena's face hardened. Rachel continued. You have the right to independent advice. You also have the right to refuse. What happens if I refuse? Lena asked. Nothing should happen to your legal rights. Emotionally, they may pressure you. Legally, your signature is not a family favor. I slid my checkbook across the table. Rachel looked at it. Before you write anything, understand the scope. Your retainer covers an emergency review, preservation demands, and an initial accounting request. A forensic review will cost more. I have savings. I am not taking a percentage of Lena's trust, Rachel said. If we prove self-dealing, we can ask the court to place reasonable costs where they belong. I wrote the check. The amount cut into the safety I had built after leaving the army. My hand stayed steady. Rachel sent preservation letters to Evelyn, Matthew, the company lawyer, and the trust institution, demanding that no records be altered or destroyed. She also notified them that Lena had independent counsel and objected. At noon, Evelyn called. I put the phone on speaker with Rachel's permission. You hired a lawyer against your own family, Evelyn said. I hired a lawyer for Lena. You are filling her head with suspicion. She read the agreement. You have never understood what it takes to preserve a legacy. Rachel wrote something on a yellow pad. I said, why is nearly all the trust's liquid value being placed inside Caldwell Infrastructure? It is an investment. Why does Lena receive non-voting shares if the company cannot repay? So she cannot make reckless decisions at 18. Lena leaned toward the phone. It is my trust, she said. Evelyn's voice changed. Sweetheart, your mother is frightened because she does not understand business. I understand that you need my signature before my birthday. Silence answered her. Evelyn finally said, put your father on. He is not here, Lena replied. Then come to my house. We will settle this privately. No, Lena said. One word, quiet and complete. Evelyn hung up. Rachel looked at Lena with restrained approval. That was your decision, remember that. An hour later, Nathan joined us carrying a worn accordion folder. I brought everything I have, he said. Months of correspondence filled it. Requests for evacuation records, witness statements, archive letters, and delayed responses. Nathan placed one document before Rachel. This arrived last week. It was a redacted safety summary. Lines were blacked out, but enough remained to establish the sequence. A stop order had been transmitted. Eric's vehicle moved beyond the cleared route. The explosion followed. Captain Danielle Brooks entered the hazard area and removed Staff Sergeant Nathan Cole from the damaged vehicle. My name sat there without praise or argument. Only fact. Lena touched the edge of the paper. You went back for Uncle Eric too, didn't you? She asked. My shoulder tightened with a pain that had slept for years. I tried. The room changed. Peppermint became diesel. The clock became rifle fire. Carpet pressed beneath my shoes, but my knees remembered gravel and blood. Nathan's hand closed around the table. You came back after you got me clear, he said. I could not reach him. Lena's eyes filled, but she did not look away. Rachel turned another page. A notation showed that a summary of findings had been provided to next of kin. The recipient's signature was partly visible beneath the redaction. Evelyn C. She received the findings, Rachel said. Can we prove what she saw? I asked. Not from this page alone. Nathan opened another pocket in the folder. I requested correspondence connected to the review, he said. This came with the summary. The copy was faint, but Evelyn's name showed at the bottom. Her letter asked whether the stop order, Eric's movement beyond the cleared route, and Captain Brooks's rescue would reach the press. Lena read the sentence twice. She knew, Lena whispered. Evelyn had known where Eric was. She had known who reached Nathan. She had known why I kept silent. Rachel's computer chimed. The financial institution answered the preservation notice. The loan had not closed, but authorization had been submitted. 2 electronic approvals were attached. Evelyn Caldwell. Matthew Caldwell. Rachel turned the screen toward me. A note beside Matthew's signature read, "Approved in the beneficiary's best interest." My husband had used his trust duty to risk Lena's inheritance. He had signed before asking for her consent. He had signed before telling me he was a trustee. He had signed while letting his mother call me a liar before a ballroom. Rachel folded her hands. "We can stop the transaction," she said, "but they will know you are challenging their control." I looked at Lena. She placed her hand over mine. "Stop it," she said. I turned back to Rachel. "File whatever you need." There would be no quiet way back after this. Outside, thunder rolled over Savannah. Inside, Rachel began drafting the emergency petition. My marriage had not ended with an affair, a slammed door, or a confession. It ended with my husband's electronic signature beneath a sentence claiming he had betrayed our daughter for her own good. Rachel filed the emergency petition before sunset. By 8 that evening, the trust institution had frozen the proposed transfer. No money would move until a judge reviewed the dispute. The email arrived while Lena and I sat in my parked car outside our house, listening to rain strike the windshield. Then Matthew opened the front door and waited under the porch light. "He knows," Lena said. "So does Evelyn. Are we going inside?" "This is still your home." Matthew did not speak until the door closed behind us. The house smelled of damp wool and the cedar polish he used on weekends. Eric's photograph remained above the fireplace. "You filed against me," Matthew said. "I filed to protect Lena. You froze company financing. You pledged her trust without telling her. It was a bridge loan. It was nearly everything liquid." His eyes moved toward Lena. "Your mother is making this sound worse than it is." Lena set her purse on the table. "Then show me the full accounting," she said. Matthew's face tightened. "The records are with counsel. Grandma said I was too young to understand. You said it was private. Now the records are somewhere else. Which answer is true?" "Lena, this company supports hundreds of families. So I have to support them with Uncle Eric's money?" Matthew looked at me as if I had scripted every word. I removed the brass key from Eric's envelope. "Tomorrow, Rachel is taking us to the storage facility listed on this receipt." "No," Matthew said. "You do not control that," I replied. "You have no idea what Eric put there. That is the second time you have said that." Matthew pressed his palms against the dining table. Eric was impulsive. He wrote things when he was angry. "Angry at whom?" "Mom, me, the company. It changed by the week." "Did he change his trust?" Silence settled between us. Lena stepped closer to her father. "You knew he left me something." Matthew swallowed. "I knew he wanted to provide for you." "That is not what she asked," Lena said. His gaze dropped to the key. "I signed what I believed protected everyone." "You signed before asking me," Lena replied. "I was trying to save what your uncle built." Uncle Eric did not build Caldwell infrastructure. Matthew's palm struck the table. The sound cracked through the room. Lena froze. Matthew stared at his hand. "I am sorry," he said. I moved between them. "Go upstairs, Lena." "I am not leaving you alone with him." "I will be fine." Matthew's voice went quiet. "I would never hurt either of you." "You already did," Lena said. She climbed the stairs without looking back. Matthew waited until her bedroom door closed. "You are turning her against me." "No, she read your signature. The company has been in my family for 50 years, and Lena has been your daughter for 17. His shoulders sagged, but no apology came. I took a small overnight bag from the hall closet. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To a huddle." "You do not need to leave." "I need sleep. Lena needs distance." "This is my house too." I looked at Eric's photograph. "For years, your mother made sure I understood that." Matthew did not stop us. The next morning, Rachel met us outside a low brick records building near the edge of Savannah. Nathan waited beside her on his crutches. The storage receipt identified Box 12 in a private archive once maintained by Mercer and Shaw. Rachel had confirmed that the retired firm's files were now controlled by a successor custodian. Because the sealed envelope named me and the box concerned Lena's beneficial interest, the custodian allowed access with Rachel present. A clerk led us into a room smelling of cardboard, dust, and cold metal. Box 12 sat on a gray table. My fingers shook when I inserted Eric's key. The lock turned with a soft click. Inside lay 3 folders, a white envelope, and a small notebook bound with a black elastic band. Eric's handwriting covered the first folder. "For Lena." Rachel put on thin gloves. "We photograph everything before removing it," she said. The first document was a beneficiary designation for a private life insurance policy. Lena was named as primary beneficiary. The second was a trust amendment appointing Evelyn and Matthew as co-trustees, while Lena remained a minor. At 18, Lena could demand a full accounting and petition for an independent trustee. A paragraph prohibited either trustee from lending trust assets to any business they controlled unless an independent fiduciary approved the transaction in writing. No independent approval existed. Lena read the clause silently. "They knew," she said. Rachel turned to the final page. 2 delivery receipts were clipped behind it. One had Evelyn's signature, the other had Matthew's. My husband had received the amendment 11 years earlier. The room seemed to tilt. Nathan steadied the table with one hand. Rachel opened the white envelope. Eric's letter began without sentiment. "Danielle, if you are reading this, Mom has probably told everyone I wanted the company protected at any cost. I did not." He wrote that Lena was the closest thing he would ever have to a daughter. He wanted her educated, independent, and free to choose a life outside the Caldwell name. Then came the line that emptied the air from my lungs. "Matthew will know what I signed. I'm asking him to protect Lena from Mom, not help Mom protect the company from Lena." Lena turned away. I touched her shoulder. She did not cry. That hurt more. Rachel continued through the notebook. Eric had recorded dates of arguments with Evelyn about folding his insurance and ownership interests into the company. One entry mentioned a proposed memorial foundation controlled by Evelyn. Another read, "Mom thinks grief gives her ownership." Nathan stared at the words. "She built everything from that," he said. The last folder contained correspondence between Eric and Harold Shaw. One letter warned that Evelyn might try to characterize Lena's trust as part of the Caldwell legacy, rather than a separate fiduciary asset. Rachel photographed each page. "We have enough to challenge both trustees," she said. "Not enough to trace the money," I replied. "No. For that, we need bank records and company ledgers." My phone vibrated. Matthew's name appeared. I answered on speaker. "Where are you?" he asked. "At the archive." His breathing changed. "You opened the box?" "Yes." "Danielle, listen to me. Mom did not steal Lena's trust. She received the amendment. So did I." "I know." Lena closed her eyes. Matthew continued. "The company borrowed funds. There were accounting summaries. There was always an intention to repay. Why were the summaries one page? Because Mom handled administration. Why did you sign a transfer prohibited by the trust? The company would have collapsed. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters when people's jobs are at stake." I looked at Eric's letter. "No. The answer that matters is why you chose their jobs, your bonus, and your mother's company over your daughter's legal rights." Matthew's voice hardened. "You do not know everything." "Then tell me." He stayed silent. Rachel wrote a note and slid it toward me. "Ask about the house entity." I said, "Did trust money go to the company that owns Evelyn's house?" The line went dead quiet. Lena stared at the phone. Matthew finally whispered, "Who told you that?" No denial, only fear. After the call, Rachel arranged a preliminary forensic review. I signed another engagement letter, limiting the accountant's work to tracing trust transfers and related entities. The retainer came from my savings. Each stroke of my pen felt like cutting one more thread tying me to Matthew. 2 days later, the first bank production arrived under the emergency accounting order. Rachel spread the statements across her conference table. Money had moved from Lena's trust into Caldwell Infrastructure in 3 large transfers. Within days, the company paid an entity called Caldwell Heritage Holdings. That entity owned Evelyn's house. Another payment covered legal fees for the very agreement designed to trap Lena's assets inside the company. A final ledger entry showed an executive retention bonus issued to Matthew during the same quarter. Lena sat beside me, pale but steady. "My trust paid Dad a bonus?" Rachel answered carefully. "The money entered the company first. We still need to establish direct tracing, but the timing is significant." My phone buzzed with an email from Matthew. "Please come home. We can fix this without destroying the family." I turned the screen face down. Neither of us spoke. Rachel pointed to a highlighted transfer. "This is the one I am most concerned about." Funds had moved from the trust into Caldwell Infrastructure, then into Caldwell Heritage Holdings. On the same day, Evelyn's mortgage lender recorded a delinquency cure. Evelyn had not merely borrowed from Lena to save the company. She had used Lena's inheritance to save her own house. Evelyn's house had been saved with money that belonged to my daughter. The sentence followed me out of Rachel's office, into the elevator, and across the parking garage. Lena walked beside me without speaking. At the hotel, she sat on the edge of the bed and removed her shoes. "Did Dad know about the house?" she asked. "I do not know yet." "He knew about the transfers?" "Yes." He knew Grandma had the amendment. Yes. Lena looked down at her bare feet. Then how many times does someone get to say they did not know? I had no answer that would protect Matthew without insulting her intelligence. My phone rang. Evelyn. I let it stop. She called again. On the third call I answered. You froze my company's credit, Evelyn said. I stopped you from pledging Lena's trust. The bank suspended our review because your attorney contacted compliance. Your certification told them no restricted funds had been used. You have no understanding of how business financing works. I understand that Lena's money cured the delinquency on your house. Silence tightened across the line. Then Evelyn laughed once. That property hosts company events. Protecting it protected the business. Is that what the trust accounting says? You are turning bookkeeping into theft. Then give Rachel every ledger. Evelyn's voice sharpened. Come to my house alone. We will settle this without strangers tearing apart Eric's legacy. Rachel is not a stranger. She represents Lena. I am Lena's grandmother. You are also the trustee who used her money. Evelyn hung up. Lena had heard every word. She still thinks being family means she owns me, she said. Before I could answer, an email alert sounded from Rachel. Caldwell Infrastructure had released a public statement. It described a painful family dispute involving distorted battlefield memories and a former officer struggling with unresolved trauma. My name was not printed, but Nathan was described as a medically vulnerable veteran whose recollections deserved compassion rather than exploitation. Lena read the statement over my shoulder. They called both of you unstable without saying it. They want the board to see emotion before evidence. What are you going to do? Nothing publicly. Her eyebrows lifted. I am not giving Evelyn the angry response she prepared for, I said. Rachel called moments later. Do not post anything, she said. Do not contact reporters. I am sending a demand to preserve every draft, approval, and distribution record connected to that statement. What about Nathan? I already spoke with him. He is furious, but he will wait. A message appeared from Matthew. Please do not make this uglier. I turned the phone face down. That evening, Evelyn arrived at the hotel without warning. Her black sedan stopped beneath the entrance awning. She stepped into the lobby carrying a leather folder. I met her in a quiet seating area near the windows. Lena stayed upstairs. Rachel remained on speaker. Evelyn placed the folder between us. I am prepared to stop the collateral transaction, she said. It is already frozen. I can also authorize an immediate distribution to Lena. How much? $200,000. The trust held far more. What happens to the rest? I asked. It remains invested in Caldwell Infrastructure until the renewal is complete. And Lena receives non-voting shares. Those shares will appreciate. Did an independent fiduciary approve that valuation? Evelyn's lips thinned. You have learned just enough language to become dangerous. I learned enough to read Eric's amendment. For the first time, her composure slipped. You opened the box. Yes. That material was private. It was addressed to me and concerned Lena. Eric was frightened before deployment. He wrote dramatic things. He wrote that you would put the company ahead of Lena. Evelyn leaned forward. If this company fails, the trust loses value anyway. Employees lose homes. Families lose insurance. Your husband loses everything his father built. My daughter is not required to rescue all of them. She benefits from the Caldwell name. She benefited from Eric's love. You converted that into leverage. Evelyn pushed the folder toward me. Inside was a settlement agreement. It required Nathan and me to make no public statement about the convoy, the gala, the trust, or the company's use of Eric's image. Lena would receive the proposed distribution only after signing a release. You want to buy our silence with part of her own money, I said. I want to prevent needless destruction. Why did Caldwell Heritage Holdings receive trust funds? Her gaze hardened. That house is part of our public identity. It is your home. It is where donors, contractors, and veterans' families gather. Then why was the payment recorded as a loan to the operating company? Evelyn's fingers pressed into the leather folder. You think documents tell the whole story. They tell me where the money went. She stood. People will lose jobs because you wanted to prove you were the hero. I remained seated. This stopped being about who saved Nathan when you used Lena's inheritance to save yourself. Evelyn bent close enough for me to smell perfume. You were never a Caldwell, she whispered. Then you should have kept your hands out of my daughter's trust. She left the settlement behind. Rachel's voice came through the earbud. She just confirmed knowledge of the transfer and offered consideration for silence. Do not touch the folder. Photograph it, then seal it. The next morning, Matthew asked to meet me in the hotel restaurant. He looked older than he had 3 days earlier. The skin beneath his eyes looked bruised, and his wedding ring kept striking the mug. "I did not know Mom used the money for the house," he said. "You signed the transfer authorizations. They went through the company first. That is not a defense. I believe they were business loans. Did you know about the plan to humiliate me at the gala?" Matthew looked toward the empty tables. "Mom said if you became defensive in public, you might back away from questioning the trust." My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "You knew she planned to attack me." "I thought she would embarrass you. I did not know she would say that." "You approved Nathan's invitation. You sent him a false speech." "I was trying to protect the renewal." "And after the gala?" I panicked. His voice dropped. "I sent Nathan an agreement last night. He would only have to stop speaking publicly until the review ended." I stared at him. "You tried to pay him again." "To protect the company. Not Lena. Not me. The company." Matthew reached across the table. I moved my hand away. "I can testify that Mom controlled the transfers," he said. "I can help remove her if you keep the certification issue away from the board." He was offering his mother to save his chair. "You still think this is a negotiation?" I said. My phone vibrated. Rachel had forwarded a filing from the contract renewal package. Evelyn's signature appeared beneath a certification stating that Caldwell Infrastructure had not used restricted fiduciary assets, undisclosed related party loans, or beneficiary funds as operating capital. The document had been signed 9 days earlier. Matthew saw the page on my screen. His face collapsed. "She signed that?" he asked. "You knew it was false. I never saw the final certification. But you knew where the money came from." He closed his eyes. I stood. "Rachel is sending the records to the directors and the contracting compliance office." "Danielle, wait." "No. If the bank pulls out, people get hurt. People were already hurt. You just decided which ones did not count." By afternoon, Lena signed a written refusal to approve any conversion of her trust into company shares. Rachel filed it with the court and sent copies to both co-trustees. Caldwell Infrastructure's lender suspended its credit renewal pending an internal review. Evelyn called me before the notice finished printing. "You did this," she said. "No," I replied. "You signed it." That evening, the board scheduled an emergency meeting. Nathan's name appeared on the witness list. An hour before the meeting, he sent me a photograph of a confidentiality agreement and a cashier's check. The payment had not come from Evelyn. Matthew had used his personal account. My husband was no longer standing silently beside the woman who betrayed us. He had stepped in front of her and started building his own escape. The cashier's check lay beside Nathan's untouched coffee. Matthew's signature appeared on the confidentiality agreement, neat and careful, as if he were approving an ordinary expense instead of buying a wounded man's silence. Nathan pushed both documents toward Rachel. "I did not cash it," he said. Rachel slid the check into an evidence sleeve. "Did Matthew send anything with it?" "A message. He said the money was for inconvenience and privacy." "Do you still have it?" Nathan handed her his phone. The boardroom occupied the top floor of Caldwell Infrastructure. Blinds were shut. The room smelled of toner, cold coffee, and citrus cleaner. Evelyn sat at the head beside company counsel. Matthew sat halfway down, 3 empty seats from his mother. Lena sat nearby, still. I wore a charcoal suit, not my old uniform. Evelyn had spent years claiming the army handed me authority I had not earned. That morning, she faced only records. The board chair began. "This meeting concerns fiduciary exposure, contract compliance, and representations made by company officers. It is not a forum for family grievances." Evelyn folded her hands. "Then Danielle should not be here," Rachel answered. "Danielle is here as Lena Caldwell's mother and as a witness to statements used to discredit Lena and Nathan Cole." Evelyn looked at Lena. "You should not be involved in this." Lena met her gaze. "It is my trust." Nathan began. He placed the gala invitation on the table, followed by the speech Caldwell's public relations office had prepared. "I was asked to say Eric Caldwell carried me from a burning vehicle," Nathan said. "That did not happen." Company counsel leaned forward. "Staff Sergeant Cole, traumatic memory can be complicated." Nathan opened his folder. "My statement was taken 2 days after the explosion, before my second surgery. It says Captain Danielle Brooks pulled me from the vehicle and applied the tourniquet that kept me alive." He placed the signed statement before the board chair. The safety summary agrees. Evelyn's expression held. "My son still died trying to help his unit," she said. "No one is denying his death," I replied. "You have denied him honor since the night he died. I protected him from becoming a public spectacle." Evelyn's voice rose. You protected yourself. Rachel placed a copy of Evelyn's old letter beside Nathan's statement. Miss Caldwell, you sent this to the investigator 12 years ago. You asked whether the press would receive details concerning the stop order, Eric's movement beyond the cleared route, and Captain Brooks's rescue of Staff Sergeant Cole. The board chair read both pages. Evelyn's hands tightened. You knew the findings, Rachel said. Yet company materials repeatedly stated Eric rescued Nathan. That wording came from communications staff. The board chair asked who approved the film. Company counsel checked the record. Evelyn and Matthew Caldwell. Matthew lowered his head. Nathan removed the blackened dog tag from his pocket and placed it on the table. This belonged to Danielle. It caught in the strap she used on my leg. I kept it because she asked me not to expose her family's lie. Evelyn stared at the tag. Nathan continued. I came because your company sent me a speech that erased her. After I refused, Matthew offered me money. Rachel set the cashier's check beside the agreement. Every face turned toward Matthew. Matthew straightened. That payment was intended to prevent public confusion while the review was pending. You called it inconvenience and privacy, Nathan said. I was trying to protect the company. From the truth? Lena asked. Matthew looked at our daughter but could not answer. The fracture had opened. Rachel moved to Eric's letter. She explained the sealed envelope, Nathan's custody, the archive receipt, and the custodian who witnessed us open box 12. The board chair read aloud. Matthew will know what I signed. I am asking him to protect Lena from Mom, not help Mom protect the company from Lena. Matthew's ring tapped the table. Evelyn said, Eric wrote that before deployment. He was emotional. Rachel placed the trust amendment beside the letter. He was also precise. Evelyn and Matthew were appointed co-trustees. Related party transactions required independent fiduciary approval. No such approval exists. The forensic accountant connected her laptop to the screen. A simple flow diagram appeared. Funds moved from Lena's trust into Caldwell Infrastructure, then to Caldwell Heritage Holdings, which cured a delinquency on Evelyn's house. Another transfer paid legal fees for converting Lena's rights into non-voting shares. A third showed Matthew's retention bonus. Evelyn lifted one hand. These were legitimate business transactions. The accountant replied. There are no independent valuations, no arm's-length approval, and no promissory note for the payment benefiting your property. The house hosts company events. That does not make its debt a trust obligation. Matthew shifted. I did not know the company payment went to the house. The accountant changed the screen. An email appeared. Evelyn had written, Heritage must be cured before the lender review. Use the legacy funds temporarily. Matthew's response sat beneath it. Proceed if counsel can characterize it as operational support. Lena inhaled beside me. Matthew stared at the screen as though someone else had typed his words. You knew enough, I said. He closed his eyes. The accountant displayed the proposed collateral transaction next. Nearly all liquid assets would secure company debt. If Caldwell failed, Lena would receive restricted shares she could neither vote nor sell. The second approval belonged to Matthew. He had signed as co-trustee and certified that the transaction served Lena's best interest. The board chair turned toward him. On what independent analysis did you base that conclusion? Matthew's voice came out rough. We expected the renewal to close. That is a company expectation. I asked about the beneficiary. No answer followed. Then Rachel placed the contract renewal certification on the table. Evelyn had signed it 9 days earlier. The document stated Caldwell Infrastructure had not used restricted fiduciary assets, undisclosed related party financing, or beneficiary funds as operating capital. Company counsel read silently. Evelyn finally looked afraid. The accounting department prepared that certification, she said. You signed it, the board chair replied. I relied on staff. The trust transfers required your approval. Evelyn turned toward Matthew. Tell them the money was temporary. Matthew looked at her, then at Lena. It was temporary, he said. Lena's voice stayed calm. Was my consent temporary too? Matthew flinched. The board moved into executive discussion while we waited outside. Matthew came into the hallway and approached me. I can fix this, he whispered. You already tried. I will testify against Mom. In exchange for what? His eyes shifted toward the boardroom. His position, his escape. Before I answered, the door opened. The board chair called us back. Evelyn stood beside her chair, one hand resting on the table. The decision came in measured sentences. Evelyn was suspended as chair and lost signing authority. Matthew was suspended as chief operating officer. An independent forensic audit would begin. All related records remained under litigation hold, and a temporary executive would take control. Evelyn's face emptied. "You cannot remove me from my own company," she said. The board chair replied, "You signed the governance agreement that gives us this authority." Evelyn turned toward me. "You destroyed Eric twice." "No," I said. "Eric died once. You kept using him because the story paid better than the truth." Her hand moved toward the laptop. Company counsel stepped between them. "Do not touch any device." Evelyn reached for her phone anyway. "Put it down," counsel said. She deleted an email before surrendering it. Triumph flickered across her face. Then the information technology director spoke from the doorway. "The deletion is already logged. The preservation hold captured the mailbox before this meeting." Her triumph vanished. Outside the building, Lena held my hand. Rachel's phone rang before we reached the elevator. She listened, then said, "The trust hearing is tomorrow morning. Can the court recover everything?" Lena asked. Rachel answered plainly, "Not automatically. If the company collapses before the transactions are unwound, some assets may be difficult to recover. We have to prove personal liability and secure Evelyn's property." Across the lobby, Evelyn stood alone. She had lost her office, title, and board. But Lena's inheritance was still trapped inside the damage she had created. Public disgrace was the easy part. Tomorrow, we would find out whether justice could make her pay it back. Rachel began with the trust instrument, not the gala, not the insult, not the battlefield. She placed Eric's amendment before the court and walked through the duties Evelyn and Matthew had accepted. 2 co-trustees, 1 beneficiary, no self-dealing, no loans to a company they controlled without independent approval, no use of trust property for personal benefit. Evelyn's attorney rose. "My client acted to preserve the value of the beneficiary's inheritance. Caldwell Infrastructure was the principal source of that value. Temporary support of the company protected the trust." Rachel answered without raising her voice. "The trust was not created to preserve Caldwell Infrastructure. It was created to preserve Lena Caldwell's independence." She displayed the transfer records. Money moved from the trust into the company, then from the company into Caldwell Heritage Holdings, then toward the delinquency tied to Evelyn's house. The judge looked over his glasses. "Was there independent approval for this transaction?" Evelyn's attorney said. "There was internal review." "That was not my question." No independent approval existed. The judge turned to Matthew. "You signed as co-trustee?" Matthew stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you review the trust restrictions?" "I relied on counsel and my mother's administration." "Did you know the company was in financial distress?" "Yes." "Did you know the beneficiary had not received a full accounting?" Matthew hesitated. "Yes." The judge continued. "Did you tell her that nearly all liquid trust assets would be exposed to the company's debt?" "No." The word landed harder than any accusation. Matthew looked toward Lena. She did not look back. Evelyn's attorney tried another path. "The house payment has been mischaracterized. The property served business purposes. It hosted donors, veterans' families, and corporate events." Rachel placed photographs of the property records beside the ledgers. "The trust did not own the house. The beneficiary held no interest in it. Evelyn Caldwell did." The judge asked Evelyn to stand. "Did you understand that trust property could not be used to cure your personal debt?" Evelyn lifted her chin. "I understood that losing the house would have damaged the company's reputation and reduced the value of Lena's inheritance." "Did the trust document authorize you to make that determination for your personal property?" Evelyn glanced at her attorney. "No." Rachel then introduced the settlement agreement Evelyn had brought to the hotel. $200,000 for Lena, silence from Nathan and me, and continued control of the remaining assets by the company. Evelyn's attorney objected. The judge allowed it for the limited purpose of showing knowledge and intent. Then came Matthew's cashier's check. Nathan testified from the witness chair. His crutches rested against the rail. "Matthew Caldwell offered me money to stop discussing who saved me and what his company asked me to say. Matthew's lawyer called it a privacy agreement." Nathan looked directly at him. "Privacy does not require me to repeat a lie." Rachel saved the audit log for last. Evelyn had deleted an email after receiving the preservation notice. The company's system retained the message and recorded the deletion. The email was addressed to Matthew. "If Lena refuses, close the bridge transaction before her birthday and let her fight for whatever remains." My daughter inhaled sharply. Matthew stared at the floor. Evelyn spoke before her attorney could stop her. That was frustration. It was not an instruction. The judge read the sentence again. "Then why did you delete it?" Evelyn had no answer. By noon, the court suspended both trustees permanently, pending final accounting. An independent fiduciary received control of all remaining trust property. Further transfers were prohibited. Caldwell Heritage Holdings was ordered to preserve the house and related assets while the court determined restitution. The judge imposed personal surcharges against Evelyn and Matthew for transactions that benefited them or violated their duties. The amount would be finalized after the forensic report, but the order made one thing clear: they could not use Lena's trust to pay back Lena's trust. Evelyn's personal assets would answer first. The matter of false certifications, concealed related party transactions, and deleted records was referred to the appropriate authorities for review. No dramatic handcuffs appeared. No prosecutor burst through the doors. Justice arrived as signatures, liens, restrictions, and doors that would never open for Evelyn again. Outside the courtroom, rain silvered the courthouse steps. Evelyn caught my arm. Her fingers felt cold. "Tell Lena not to force the sale of my house," she said. I removed her hand. "That decision belongs to the independent fiduciary and the court. You know what that house means. I know whose money saved it." Her face tightened. "I was protecting my son. You protected the version of him that made you powerful." Evelyn's eyes filled, but no apology came. "If you let this continue, Eric's name will be dragged through every filing." "Eric's name was already inside every filing you signed." She leaned closer. "You stayed silent too." "I was merciful," I said. "You mistook mercy for permission." I walked down the steps without turning around. Matthew waited near the parking lot. "Danielle, please!" Lena stopped beside me. Matthew looked at our daughter. "I made terrible decisions. I was trying to keep the company alive." Lena's voice remained quiet. "You used my money without asking me. I believed I could replace it." "You also tried to pay Nathan." Matthew closed his eyes. "I panicked." "You always have a word that makes what you did sound temporary," Lena said. "A loan, a mistake, panic. None of it felt temporary to me." He reached toward her, then let his hand fall. "Can I call you?" "When I am ready." Matthew nodded. I handed him an envelope. "My divorce petition was filed this morning." His face folded. "Is there no way back?" "You signed away the way back before I knew there was a road." The divorce did not end that week. Georgia procedure moved at its own pace. Months passed. The independent fiduciary recovered the remaining liquid assets, reversed what could be reversed, and pursued the rest through court orders and negotiated repayment. A lien attached to Evelyn's house. Her position as trustee ended permanently. She was barred from managing the Memorial Foundation and any future family trust. Caldwell Infrastructure survived, but not in the form Evelyn had controlled. The board sold non-essential property, removed directors who had ignored obvious warnings, and canceled the anniversary campaign built around Eric's false rescue story. The contract renewal did not proceed while the investigation remained open. Matthew lost his executive position and was required to repay benefits connected to the trust transfers. Employees kept working under new leadership. Punishing Evelyn did not require burning every innocent person standing near her. Nathan approved the corrected public statement. It said Eric Caldwell died during a convoy incident after moving beyond a cleared route. It recognized his service without inventing an act he had not performed. It named Captain Danielle Brooks as the soldier who removed Staff Sergeant Nathan Cole from the damaged vehicle and provided life-saving care. Lena read it once, folded it, and placed it beside Eric's letter. On a cool spring morning, Nathan visited our new townhouse near the river. His adjusted prosthetic fit properly again, though he carried one cane for balance. Lena had been accepted into an engineering program with a focus on occupational safety. The trust would pay tuition under the independent fiduciary's supervision. No Caldwell executive could touch it. Nathan handed me the blackened dog tag. "You should keep it this time," he said. I turned it over in my palm. "It does not feel like a medal," Lena said. "It is not," I replied. "What is it?" "A reminder." "Of what?" "That silence can be an act of love, but love does not require surrendering the truth." Lena brought Eric's letter from the kitchen table. One paragraph had never been read in court. Eric had written that if he failed to return, he hoped Lena would grow into a woman like me, because I was the only Caldwell he knew who never confused power with courage. I read the words aloud. Nathan lowered his head. Lena cried quietly. I placed Eric's letter back inside its envelope and gave it to her. "That belongs to you." She held it against her chest. "And the key? Keep that too." Nobody could rewrite what those preserved pages proved. Still, Lena threaded it onto a simple chain. Outside, sunlight broke across the river. For years, Evelyn had controlled the family by deciding which stories deserved to survive. Matthew had helped her because obedience protected his place beside her. They lost that place together. Evelyn lost the chairmanship, the trust, the foundation, the house she had protected with Lena's money, and the power to speak for Eric. Matthew lost his office, his marriage, and the unquestioned love of his daughter. Neither loss came from my uniform, my rank, or the color of my skin. Their own signatures brought them down. I closed my hand around the dog tag. The ballroom where Evelyn had asked whether people like me deserved to be called heroes felt very far away. Nathan knew who had carried him from the fire. Lena knew who had protected her future. I knew what my silence had cost. That was enough. I placed the dog tag in a small wooden box and closed the lid. For the first time in 12 years, nothing belonging to Eric was hidden. Nothing belonging to Lena was under Evelyn's control. And nothing belonging to me required the Caldwell family's permission.